This is Social Leopards. I'm Bea.
And I'm Beth. A leopard is a solitary creature living in the jungle, but often not seen or noticed. Are you a solitary creature trying to navigate the social jungle?
This show explores loneliness and the many ways forward. Welcome to Social Leopards.
Hello, everybody. I am Beth.
And I'm Bea. Welcome to Social Leopards.
Hey, Malisa Hepner joins us today. Bea and I are thrilled to have her here. I was a guest on Melissa's podcast, Emotionally Unavailable, a few months back, and Bea's episode with Melissa should be airing on or about the same time that this episode airs. So we'll leave some notes in the show, or some links in the show notes for you. Melissa is a non-traditional therapist. That's by her, the way that she describes herself on her website, and an entrepreneur who has thrived despite what I think I could mildly describe as a difficult childhood. Her passion, her energy, and her vibe are very apparent as you listen to her podcast. And my very first exposure to you, Melissa, was on Threads, which led us to Instagram, which we'll talk about in a minute. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, for real. I'm so excited that you guys invited me.
Oh, yes. And I thought it would be interesting to start. The very first Instagram post that I watched was right after you left a coffee shop drive-through. And I knew at that moment, I was like, I gotta meet this woman.
That's right. Yes, the first one we saw. Yeah.
Can you tell us just a little bit about that? And I think it's well worth listening to. Real.
Yeah, that's why I pinned that, honestly, because to be frank, that level of emotion being expressed to other people, whether it was behind a camera or not, was new for me.
So what happened? Can you tell us?
Yeah, I was at Starbucks, and listen, protest me if you want, okay? Until I get a better coffee shop near me. Actually, I don't love the coffee that much, but they have a order ahead app, okay? And I just want to run in and get my coffee. So there's a new coffee place in town, and if they will get me an app and an order ahead capability, I'll be glad to go there. But anyway, so I was there, and there was these two, I don't even think they were like managers or anything, but two girls who worked there, and they were very clearly training a young man who was very new. And every time I go there, I think about it, it's still so upsetting. I think he quit after that day, but he was doing like normal mistakes that you make when you're first starting somewhere, and especially a place like Starbucks. And my oldest son's friend has worked for Starbucks for, 10 years, I think. And so, no, that would have made her 13. She's worked there for 7 years or something. I don't know. But I know it's a very fast-paced environment. I know that there are so many things to learn. But that day, they just made it their mission to humiliate him. And everything he did was wrong. And he was working really fast over in this one section, maybe like where you add caramel or things like that, spilled a little bit. And then the girl who I thought at first was possibly trying to be nice and counteract the other person, because I could hear like the tone of her voice seemed nice, but then I'm like listening and looking, and she's being condescending and being sarcastic and saying things that were so ridiculous. Like, this amount of excrement is an automatic health code violation. I'm like, excrement? You don't have rats in here shitting on your counter. Like, what? So I was just like, I don't understand why she's making, except my understanding of human behavior. I knew exactly what was happening, but it just killed me because I could just see he was just deflating more and more. And I could also see that the reason the bullying was happening is because they were feeding off each other and they were trying to impress one another. And I was just like, and I have a son who is on the spectrum. I have been the awkward new person at plenty of jobs. And actually it did make me really go back to a couple of times. It more hurt me for my son because he had a really bad experience at a job like that. But I had several where like being the new person sucks, especially. Well, let's just be real. If a woman finds some reason to be jealous of you or intimidated by you, she's going to make your life hell when you're young. That's how it was for me, was Like, I had no self-esteem in high school, so it was interesting to me for people to be intimidated by me or threatened by me or jealous of me. I didn't see it the way I see it now, but I was definitely like, okay, you hate me because I'm friends with a boy you like, who I, at that time, would never have dreamed liked me. We were just friends. Now I'm like, oh, he liked me. But at the time, I was like, we're just friends. Just like being treated like that over and over. And yeah, that really hurt me so bad because I don't feel like anyone deserves to be like doing life and being squashed like a bug.
Exactly. And the compassion that you showed for that individual, I like wanted to go find him and make sure he saw that reel because it was so awesome. And we talk about both self-compassion and compassion for others all the time and the importance of the difference that can make in somebody's day or even their life to be
Their
shown
life.
that moment.
Hmm. And I remember a time when I was buying my first house with my first husband. I was telling my mom about the mortgage lady. Like, it was someone at the broker's level being so kind to me. And she said, Missy, it makes me so sad that like you get that happy and that excited when someone's nice to you. And I was like, yeah, I guess I do make a really big deal about it. But I felt like up to then and for many years after, that was like most of my interactions out in the like greater world at large. Like every time I was interacting with someone like was being rude about something, and I was out here just trying to spread love. And like I've always been a fraction, like there's always been this here. I didn't always know like how to show love or anything like that, but I've always had a love for humanity and always wanted to make people smile and stuff. So it was really unusual for me to constantly interact with people who did nothing but make others miserable. But I do remember all of the times that just some small gesture made such a difference for me. And yeah, it matters a lot. And the way you move through the world impacts whether you are aware of it or not.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think sometimes people like you who are or have the propensity to be kind attract, unfortunately, these other people who probably need to learn the lesson. So you're doing a community service sometimes. And I feel like I'm a school psychologist during the day, and I do feel like I'm always having to deal with these difficult people more often than not. And it really, like you, I want to be kind to people. I want to leave the world a better place. But it can be very triggering to just be like, oh, can you just not be rude today? Can you just stop it?
Can I ask you this? Because while you were saying attracting that person, because as I was speaking, I kept thinking, why did I attract that? You know what I mean? But I'm wondering too, is that one of your big wounds in life, is being dismissed and minimalized?
Absolutely.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. So that I'm sure that's why we've attracted so many of those people,
Yes.
because we have to
Yes.
continue to like evolve through that. And I'll tell
Yes.
you, I've learned that I'm not a bad person if I stand up for myself and use my voice for me too.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I think that was really where I got to. I was like, I don't even have to be cruel or rude to advocate for
Mm-hmm.
myself and be like, oh, well, that was
Mm-hmm.
cute. We're going to start over or we're not going to talk. But
Yeah.
that was a long road. And I think, honestly, all of those experiences where I'm just existing, like checking out at Target or whatever I'm doing, and someone's being rude. And I'm like, because I had a friend who'd be like, Melissa, I just don't understand. This doesn't happen to me. She's like, no, I got RBF and you don't, and whatever, but I don't understand. I was like, no, I really don't either. I really don't, because I'm doing my best. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's probably just like, how much you gonna let that happen, and without
Yeah.
finding the balance between love
Yeah.
for yourself and love for humanity.
Yeah, but of course, with my profession, that's par for the course. You're going to
Oh
have
yeah,
those
you don't
people.
get to
These are
talk back.
people, yeah, they're struggling, and they're frustrated with their families and their children, and you have to be kind. But as far as what you just said, as far as with my life, I'd say I have evolved past those wounds, and I do have maybe one or two people in my environment that really I know that they are toxic for me, but it's
Hmm.
been a process letting go of them because they're part of some of my social groups. But I'm
Sure.
definitely way better at seeing it and giving myself the pause, say, do you really want to engage with this person even though they're part of this group? Can you somehow keep yourself apart? And it's more
Right.
complicated.
No, I totally get that. And I think too, that's been really revealing to me to learn how to be emotionally available was like how much to give to any interaction. What is my responsibility to myself, to them? And so just learning like I can keep things surface and it still be fun. Like it doesn't have to. My big thing with toxicity is there's nothing more toxic to me and my spirit than the little, I'm trying not to cuss. Y'all know I'll be so natty mouth.
It's okay.
The
I like
people
it.
that just do nothing but shit, bitch. Like they're just constantly complaining or want to talk. The complaining is it doesn't even hurt me as much. Now I'll stop you and switch the subject. But like that doesn't hurt me as much as the nonstop talking badly about others. I get it. I did it too all day, every day. That's how I initiated connection. That's how we stayed connected. There wasn't a person off the list either. Anyone was up for grabs on who to talk bad about. And it didn't feel like gossip and it didn't feel like being a bad person. But ultimately, it was pretty negative. And even for my own spirit, that was so bad for me. But I also know this is how we are taught as a society to socialize, because if you're not connecting authentically, what else are you going to talk about? The weather, don't ever bring it up to me. If it's tornado, don't talk to me about the weather ever. But there's the weather, and then there's talk bad, and then how much you hate your job, and that's it. And I'm like, okay, guys, I feel you on that, I really do. But how are you in here? Or how's it going? But I think that's how you learn what the responsibility to yourself is. But if we're not walking around in a state of connection to our body and you're just floating, then you don't really even know what feels good and what doesn't. So, I mean, I see how I did all the things that I did for so many years, but it's hard now. I can't say I really feel isolated, but I do feel sometimes I wish I could talk to that person, but I did it too many times to where I realized they're still going to be that person. And it's also not fair of me to continue to take on people as projects and to continue to hold them to a standard of of course, I know they could be anything. With my clients, sometimes I'm like, okay, that's fair. But you could put any man in this position if they just this and they just that, sure, then anyone's going to be compatible for you, but we got to deal with what's right in front of us. So that's why it's a struggle for me, because I do want to give more chances and I do want to believe that it can be different, but toxic is toxic and I can't do the healing for others, and maybe they're fine with where they're at. We just don't vibe, and I don't need to force the connection anymore.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are unaware of how they are affecting others. And I think there's a degree of arrogance in that, depending on what you do for a living, depending on how you've been socialized. I do know of a particular person who I think this person is completely unaware of the fact that she is destroying a lot of relationships, and she just goes from relationship to relationship, and that's it. So I don't think she values what she has. So
yeah,
that's called more like narcissism and probably character disorder, right?
And
I don't know. Is she a Gemini?
I think sometimes too, especially when you're younger, right? You should know better when you're older, but when you're younger, a lot of times some of that mean girl stuff happens because you're seeking that self-acceptance or that acceptance in your peer group, not self-acceptance. And it's so much easier to just go along with that crowd. And I don't know.
Yeah. It's true.
I hate it so much. And I think I went along sometimes as a teenager, but I am glad I finally found my way forward there. Yeah.
To your point about knowing better, doing better, this is probably a hot take. I feel weird saying this, but I don't know that you can know better if you haven't like really dealt with your stuff. Like, sure, you can hear all this rhetoric that we preach all the time. It doesn't mean shit if you haven't done the work. I'm not going to take the accountability away from anyone. But also, I think I love to reframe things like that so that I'm never taking them personally. Like, I always want to stay in the center of nothing that they do changes my worth or value as a human. And I love to just step back, take one step to the kicker, college football kicker, how they get it gives you a different angle to where you're like, okay, yeah, that really doesn't have anything to do with me. And I can see exactly where they're like needing some work, but that's not my job. I don't have to like it. I don't have to love it. I don't have to fix it either. And I don't have to be around it. But the only reason I reframe stuff like that is just because we can really let things like that hurt us on this real deep level, because that's where all of our wounding is. All that abandonment and rejection and neglect and betrayal is just sitting there ready for someone to open it up at any time. And it does, and it can hurt so bad, but I just always try to stay really centered in the fact that I'm the magic.
Yes. Take back your power.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of course, our podcast is about loneliness and anxiety. What do you do? What are your thoughts when you get a client that struggles with that? How do you help them get past that?
Anything to do with anxiety, I approach like, okay, if you've listened to any of my shows, then you know what I'm about to say. But if you're in your head, you're not in your heart. So like anytime that there's a thought spiral, which is all anxiety is, right? It's just yourself lying to yourself and then reconfirming the lie and just over and over. Not that I haven't done it a bajillion times myself, but yeah. So what are you not addressing in there? And loneliness and anxiety go hand in hand, because if you are avoiding feeling loss or betrayal is so big in loneliness, because I'm going to reject you before you reject me, and rejection and abandonment. So like all of those wounds are why we stay stuck and why we're sitting in isolation without really knowing how to reach out. But that's the thing, is I have always been a magnet for people, good and bad. I mean that in a good way for this context. And when I choose to, I do shine very brightly. So that being said, I was still taking people on as projects. So the whole thing was for like, how can I serve you or whatever, just to avoid my own stuff and feel like I was doing something good.
Yep.
But I was pretty lonely. Like I viewed myself as like a peripheral friend, not because I wasn't super important in their life. A lot of times I was the center of their life because they didn't know what to do without me, which is obviously what I wanted. But where was anyone that I could go to? And I'm sure that there were people that I could, but I didn't feel like I could because I didn't know how to say. Like whenever I was in a mental health crisis, literally it just got to where I was like, nobody really wants to hear about how I want to die anymore. So I guess I'll just not talk. And I didn't. And then that's why I lost half a friend group, because I stopped talking about how depressed I was because they didn't care. Straight up, it was obvious. They're like, oh, we don't really know what to do with that, because usually you're the one who's listening to us, and we're not the licensed clinical social worker here, you are, so I don't really know what to do. And then so I stopped talking, and then I would only talk about good things when something good was happening or whatever, but then that pissed them off. So it was like I was screwed no matter what, because they're like, oh, you only and I was like, I'm so confused. You didn't like it when I talked about wanting to die, and now you don't like when I tell you I just published a children's book, whatever. It was like, gosh,
Can't wait.
but I did that to myself because I built that loneliness and isolation off of a belief that I wasn't worthy enough for people to be there for me. Honestly, when I dug really deep, that's what it came down to. So if we're dealing with loneliness and anxiety, got to dig deep and understand which wound we're not addressing, because that's what our brain does. You know, I work in grief too, and we can get really caught up in some really nasty thought cycles just to avoid saying to ourselves, I'm never going to see them again. And A, I can't fathom that. And B, I already miss them so much. Like, what is that? Like, how can I sit in this hurt? But we're so afraid of that. We're so afraid of feeling, because we just are so sure that it's going to feel as bad as it did the very first time we felt that. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. It just sparked a thought of a lot of people that I've spoken with, and some of the feedback that we've gotten through our email, people who are afraid to leave someone because they would rather stay with the bad person than leave the bad person and experience the loneliness. And
Right.
it is such a difficult conversation to try to have. And I don't have a therapy practice, so I always try to refer them out. But
Exactly.
Yeah.
but that we get a lot of that feedback where people are like, I know I'm in not the healthiest relationship, but I just cannot bear the thought of being alone again.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so I guess I would say, what did alone look like? What was that? Like, what did it look like? And why are you so convinced that's the way alone always has to look? In my membership, I'm doing a lot of like mindset work because that's all it is. I have clients that are like divorce or whatever, they're contemplating it, and it's, but my kids, and I'm like, oh. So the thing that we do as humans is we try to predict our environment, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we have to take our prior knowledge. You work in education, you know all about that. Activating your prior knowledge. But sure, that's going to influence what it could look like. But what if we stopped imagining the worst case scenario and started imagining the worst case as the best case? Oh, I don't have to wake up and worry about this. I get the time for this. Like starting to just slowly reframe the way we view things changes everything. But I think too, something that really makes me think about is recently when the new year started, I was like, okay, I want to build a foundation of habits. I don't want to start like some brand new list of habits. If I want to be very intentional about how I live, I need to incorporate a few more things. Like I was like, I don't have a spiritual practice. I want that. And I don't have this and blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, how can I not attach that to achievement? Because I don't actually get any control over that. Like I'm working hard, but I don't get control over what post hits and what any of that stuff. So what can I control? And I think it really made me stop and think. I know this sounds so cliche, but foundations aren't even poured overnight. Like they start with leveling the ground and they start with the next steps. And how can we incorporate small shifts in the way that we think to get from 1 to 10, but 10 being like the new starting point and not all of a sudden everything in our life is perfect because we did these 10 steps. But I think that we get so ahead of ourselves because we're afraid of a lot of stuff. We're afraid of loss. We're afraid of abandonment. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of neglect. We're afraid of betrayal, afraid of abuse. And so I just am like learning how to take really small steps into shifting the way I look at things. And that's what I'm encouraging my clients to do too, is just like, hey, Rome wasn't built overnight, man. And I know that people like to say that stuff and it be a platitude, but it's very real. And until you get really comfortable with the fact that, yeah, sometimes it's going to suck and sometimes it's going to hurt, but none of it feels as bad as the things that we have done to try not to feel.
Yeah, and I agree. That's brilliant advice. The small step thing. I am in a situation now with my parents going through caregiving with them. And my great friend always reminds me to take each day at a time, to not over dramatize everything and just to take a breath and just rethink what's going on and remind myself that my father is 90 years old and my mom's going to be 88. And they're probably not aware of what they're doing all the time. But yes, you have to constantly just take it easy, small steps, and not get overwhelmed. But, I go to the place like, oh, my God, what's going to happen to this and this? And I have to just stop, so yeah.
No, I totally get that. And that would be so hard too, because whether you like have a great relationship with your parents or not, they're the ones who created any of your wounding from childhood. So like they're opening it up all day, every day. And it's so hard to not be that kid.
Yes.
Every time, believe me, I know. I don't have any of that left, but I remember.
Yes. Lots of suppressed curse words.
Yeah. Yes. I just remember being like, you are never going to change. Like in my head, like, how have you been this way your entire life?
Yes.
And then looking back, you're like, hey, I really should have been more of an adult. But I was the kid in that situation. Like, even I don't care how old I am. I'm the kid. So what? And I think too, like when you are shifting responsibilities and roles like that, it's very tricky for all parties, obviously. But because there's still a little bit of fear of disappointing them and not measuring up. So when it comes to making decisions for 90-year-olds,
Mm-hmm.
removing the keys from them, things
Mm-hmm.
like that, working in hospice, man, I had to walk people through that all the time because it's like, baby, you're not their kid anymore. You're their caregiver. And you
Right.
can't care about making them mad when it's a decision that's not just life-saving for them, but everyone else on the road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You need to be driving, baby.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I
Yes,
appreciate that a lot.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's this line because right now I know there is a lot of focus on person-centered care, and I'm speaking for Bea. She's trying to honor what her dad wants with what her mom needs, and the two things are completely at odds with each other. So it is
Totally.
really a hard line or a path to follow. It's very narrow, and then it keeps changing paths, and
Yeah.
what B thinks is best is not necessarily matching up with what dad thinks is best.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. And especially if your family was very like dad rules the roost or whatever, it's all a very tricky dynamic. And I'm glad that you have someone that you can just bounce stuff off with, because ultimately you are the ones left to make decisions. But like, these people aren't the people who raised you anymore. You know what I
Right. Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And we don't have the same, regardless, like the promises that we make to these people in our like younger life and in their younger life about how we're going to care for them in their old age. I think that we should normalize, like, we don't have to stick to everything we've ever promised, because we were a younger version of ourselves then too. We didn't really know what the hell we were signing up for. Not to say quit being a caregiver or quit whatever, but just like understanding within yourself that you're still doing a really good job, even if you just stay within the things that you have the time, energy, and resources for, and that you're still doing all of the things to honor the love and life that they provided for you. But nobody knows what the hell this is going to look like when your parents get elderly. You don't know what you're signing up for. And I used to have a lot of people who would just be like, just so distraught that, but I promised them this and I promised. I would just try to reframe how you view like breaking a promise, because that wasn't you that promised. That was a former version of you. And how can we, again, back to the point of what do we have right in front of us right now, and not what was or what will be? What's the best decision that can be made in this very moment? And practicing all that love and compassion for yourself at the same time. Because
That's such
listen,
yeah.
caregivers get sick AF, okay? You have to take care of yourself, or else, and you
Well,
know
yeah.
that. You
Well,
know all
that's
the things.
that is a huge point that you brought up. Yeah, because I was looking a statistic up, and there was a large percentage of people who caregive that kill themselves, that will commit
Yes.
suicide or get
Yes.
extremely sick and actually die before the people they're caring for. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've
A
really got to
lot
take this
of
seriously.
people, yes. It's a high alarming number.
Yes.
So just that balance, what's it worth, right? Like, I'm sure you've heard
Mm-hmm.
me talk about how like my currency is peace or whatever, right? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have to determine how much peace I'm willing to give up for any given situation. Like, yours is health, bro. Like, you gotta, I don't know, how can I do this while I'm still caring for myself first?
Yeah.
Because this is a really controversial thing to say, and I really do mean this from a very loving place, so just know that.
Mm-hmm.
But no matter what your parents have done for you in your entire life, it's actually not your responsibility to provide this level of care, but you are, and that's fine. But do it to your own level of comfort, and because you don't owe them shit. And I
Yeah.
mean that with love for both you and them, but you don't owe them. They put you on this earth.
Yeah.
You didn't ask to be born.
Yeah, and I have gotten there, but I so appreciate you saying this. I always think the universe delivers things for us, to us, when we need to hear them. And thank you. It makes me feel so good. You really made my day for
Oh,
confirming
good.
that for me. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
I know, right? It's just that, yeah, you're getting us just during a very pivotal series of changes in Bee's life.
Yeah.
So thanks, Bee, for being so vulnerable in this moment. We actually
Seriously,
are going to
thank
have
you.
We're actually going to do a just she and I caregiving follow up, because that was one of our most listened to episodes last season, was when I shared the journey of my caregiving with my dad, and now she's going through it with her mom. So yeah, it's a lot, and it's depressing, and you can actually become depressed, which leads to all that other bad stuff we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So really rough. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit so that we don't run out of time, because I have a couple other things I wanted to talk about. But earlier I introduced you as a non-traditional therapist. Why do you tend to call yourself that?
Because I don't have a line between my public self and my private self.
Okay.
I don't act any differently. Like, I talk to my clients exactly how I'm talking to you right now. And you've been on my show. I cussed and all the things. Everything that you get right here is exactly what you'd get in a session with me. And because I'm willing to throw some tarot in or whatever, stuff like that. Like, because I don't, the big line is sometimes I don't really walk you to water. I usually waterboard you with information, because I don't sit and do the dumb. That was rude. Let me take that back. It's not my style to say, how does that make you feel?
Exactly the phrase going through my mind is she's going to say, how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, let me not call it dumb. Let me not call it dumb. Inauthentic and stupid. Whatever.
It's traditional.
I hated it.
Let's reframe it as a traditional question that gets asked along the way.
Yeah, and it's just things like that. Or like even some of the things that you're taught in grad school about what to do and what not to do. I'm going to flip-flop those. I'm going to do a lot of the stuff I'm not supposed to, and I'm not going to do some of the stuff for instance, I don't love diagnosis. I don't love it because it's quite literally a list of attributes that we throw together to give someone a label. I'm not like anti-labels. And for anything related to a psychiatric, like psychosis, whatever, yes, we need those. We need those so much. I've just seen too many people get really trapped in the loop of bipolar diagnosis, BPD, and I can't think of the other one, but it really irritates the shit out of me. And so I don't want to be that person. If they want the diagnosis, I'll be like, fine. But it's because I just am like, we're all a little bit narcissistic until like, I probably met the criteria for most personality disorders. I really did. I really did. And that's not to say that I'm not still a little crazy, but I'm living my life in a very intentional way, and I'm not depressed or anxious. I really live in peace and joy, not because I don't have my moments. Both me and my husband are sick right now, and I hate him for also being sick. I'm just not gonna lie about it. It's now his fault. And so rude. I don't care if we got this from our daughter or not. Like, you're supposed to be taking care of me, and you're not. So.
Gosh.
So do you think that part of the reason, and this is what I think, and see if you agree, sometimes if somebody like the kids that I see have a diagnosis, it gives them no motivation to change their behavior, because they could say, I'm doing this because I'm this. Or the parent will say, so-and-so is this way, that's why they can't, you know what I'm saying? So then they're using that as a reason not to have to do anything different.
When really those are just words.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so it really just depends. Yes and no. Yes. And a former version of me didn't even believe in ADHD. I don't want to talk about it. But as I've watched lots of things evolve, I know I've been the parent in that meeting, and I knew how I was being perceived, and I knew that they were thinking that's what I was saying. But yes, people do that, where they're like, this is free for all to do whatever, because I can't help it. And some people truly believe things like that. That the whatever diagnosis you've been given is a life sentence and no way out. So yes and that, but I really mean more like young adults who like get diagnosed with bipolar because they were undiagnosed ADHD. And also, I guess the reason I don't like it is because I think that there's a way to work with anything that's going on with your brain or your body. I'm really protective over some things because it's my own wounding from how shitty I've been treated in the school system, even though I've worked in it. But like every time with this one kid of mine, like every meeting, every whatever, Like, it's just been so, like, horrible. But yes, I do think that lots of people, they just have it as a crutch. They don't really know what to do with it. But even ADHD, man, there's so much. Understand this is the way your brain works, but also there's so much we can do.
We can do, yeah. Yeah, and I think, and I agree with you, and I think the thing is that sometimes with the young adults that go to college that have assessed, that have helped them get accommodations, sometimes they get so many accommodations that they just stop realizing their own potential because they get so buried and bogged down with, oh my gosh, maybe truly I can't do this. I can't overcome it. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to not try. And I think that's where I was going with that. And I do agree. You have to, no matter what you have, no matter who you are, you always can do great things. And you have to find the way to do it in a different way, possibly, maybe like a non-traditional way, what you're saying. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think I look at myself, and because of my trauma brain, like I didn't learn in school through primary school. So like I have a kid who just knows so much history and stuff, and I'm like, weird. I wonder if they taught that when I was a kid, because I certainly don't remember any of it, because I just couldn't. I was not focused. I was not whatever. If I had, after graduating from high school with a 1.7 GPA, okay, if I had done that and then someone had provided me with lots of reasons why it was okay that I did that, yeah, it was okay. It was. I'm fine. I got a master's. I'm doing great. Like, whatever. But if they had given me any leeway to lean into the 1.7 instead of, baby, we just got to repair some stuff up here and we got to get you calm and away from all of these people who are psycho and treating you badly and all of these things. Like, we got to work together to figure out how to get you going in this direction versus, hey, you have this diagnosis. I absolutely could have leaned into that. I'm really thankful that so much of today's rhetoric wasn't around in 1998 when I was like struggling to figure out how to be an adult. I love so much now, but I just, listen, you are a school psych. You know what that DSM looks like. I hate it. I hate the new DSM. I wish it could just be burned. I hate it so much. Like,
Yeah.
the diagnosis criteria is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a guideline. I mean, we have Article 7, so we look at a little bit beyond that. But yes, definitely I'd say that's great. But how are we going to help you reach your potential in school despite all of your hindrances? And I'm always the person that likes to give them the most potential to do well. So I'm going to give you the least accommodations and see what you need versus like, you need all this stuff. No, you're a human being. You're unique. You're great. You're you. And we need to know who you are now, and then we can go from there. But I think a lot of people want to just, they assume so much. That's the one thing I can't stand. Like when I write those reports, I'm so careful about respecting the child and the parents. Sometimes they'll write these nutty things in their histories. And I'm just like, are you really sure you want me to write that? Because people are
it's like everyone who ever reads this is going to know that. Yes, rude.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I'd say that when I think about the kids that I work with, it's like my child. And it's like me when I was bullied as a kid in high school. I was, an immigrant's daughter. English was not my first language. We could go on and on. We'll have an episode about that. But so I totally get that these kids are being bullied. They are being marginalized. The parents, the people that come from like Mexico or China, nobody understands them. And they're assuming so many things. Like when I went to school, real quick, people didn't know that I spoke another language and wanted to put me into an intellectual disability class when I was 5. Yes, the nuns.
Because English wasn't your first language.
They didn't know that I spoke other languages and assumed I couldn't learn English. So I got a tutor and in 1 year learned it. But things like that, people just are so quick to judge. And we have to be very careful, about what we say about them.
So true.
Absolutely. Another thing that we talk about a lot on our Another
podcast
thing we talk about all the time is about self-care and the importance of self-care.
Yeah.
Do you talk a lot about that in your non-traditional therapy practice?
Yeah, so my whole practice revolves around self first. Because if someone comes to me with problems and they're like only focusing, their whole problem is their spouse or their partner, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't care about that. So let's talk about you and how you can love yourself and give yourself what you're clearly not getting from this person. But I think because I had, a spiritual awakening during my whole healing stuff, it really it was such an aha moment where I felt like actual love and compassion for myself. And I think that's the only way that you can give those things to others, is to stay in them within you. And that's how I try to make every decision, and how I encourage my clients to make decisions. Like, you can choose to leave a relationship from a place of spite, or you can choose to leave a relationship from a place that's, yeah, you know what? People are people, and I don't have to hate you. Like, this doesn't have to be about me at all. Like, I'm perfect. So if you don't like me, that's fine. But like, I'm going to leave this from a place of love for myself versus, and they don't give me this and they don't give me that and they blah, blah, blah. And that's fair. It's fair. It's just, I'm just talking about a different level of consciousness where you love yourself so much you couldn't possibly allow somebody else to not love you like that. And also to understand that romantic love is not real. That's not love at all. That's dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. That's not love. Love is the way you feel for yourself. When you can fill yourself up and say, man, I feel a little rejected by that right now. Why did that open some rejection up? Okay, what am I needing? And give that to myself, and not you this, you this, you this, meaning you hate me, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not measuring up. Doing things from a place of love and compassion for yourself just means like always asking yourself, what do I need? What do I need right now? And how can I meet that need if I don't have anyone else around to meet it? And I hate it. I hate it, honestly, because that's been my number one lesson in life, is to learn how to meet my own needs instead of expecting other people to. And I'm still working on that. And it makes me mad, truly, because I'm still like, oh, I'm a little bit of a brat, and when I want something, I want you to do that for me. So, i.e. my husband being sick at the same time as me. Middle fingers up to him. But it really is such a learning process, because you can meet your own needs. The reason we're so afraid of doing it is because somewhere back there, we have this little thing that says we're not enough. And we are. So I love to confirm like that I am enough and I can meet my needs. And maybe there are some needs that you can't like meet for yourself, but like you could figure out who's safe to go to and ask them to help you sort it out, or whatever it is that you're struggling with. But love and compassion for yourself is just like one decision of, yeah, I'm not going to hate myself anymore. But then once you make that decision, the most beautiful thing happens, to where you're actually able to see every time some self-deprecating remark is about to come out of your mouth, or being like sarcastic and condescending with yourself, like all of the things that I used to do that just beat myself down nonstop. I just don't anymore. Like I have an episode coming out soon where I was talking to someone and I said, yeah, I'm a writer too. And then I stopped and I was like, I don't know, minimalizing any of my accomplishments. And I was like, oh, but let me revise that, please. Cause I don't go on. Like I don't say stuff. If it's not the exact thing I want to feel about myself, then I have to stop whoever I'm talking to and be like, minor revision here. But that's reconfirming that one decision every day. I have to reconfirm all day, every day, as a matter of fact, that one decision to love myself. Because I'm starting to think we're all going to be screwed up by our parents, and our soul's purpose is truly to just overcome it and find the love for ourselves. Like, you can't go wrong. Everything else is so much bigger, better, and brighter when you find that, because then you can be in receivership of love from others. But it's just your love reflected back at you. So of course you're not going to see that if you're around toxic people. I talk a lot. I'm sorry.
It's
No,
all right.
we love it. You're just amazing. This light, this beautiful, really light energy.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think the one thing that kept going through my mind as you were saying that was, I think the thing that I tell myself when I'm starting to feel similarly is give yourself grace. And I give that advice often, that you need to just stop and give yourself grace. And that helps me all the time. And that's that little voice from my mom when I was growing up. You know, there's always something that's tied to it. And when you take that moment, you can, I don't have to listen to that voice anymore. That voice came from the very distant past. And that was
But
little me.
that was a great thing that she said to you. I don't think I've ever, my parents never, that was never any of the voices I heard, but I like that one. I'm gonna steal that one, but I think she's right. What a beautiful thing she said to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, I always take it one step further with the grace thing because we're good girls and we have this good girls complex. And so I'm always like, I have to go in here because this is where she is. We're all confident and whatever. It's these people in here that doesn't know what they're worth. So I'm always like, you're still a good girl. And good girls can be blah, 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 whatever it is. And you don't have to be a good girl if you don't want to be. You can go raise hell if that's what you want. So I just like constantly, I try to really hit the source with that because that's truly what it is, good girl syndrome. And good girls don't make waves and good girls don't make strangers who want to touch them inappropriately uncomfortable. Like all of the things that I'm like, we're not good girls around here. We do what we want. But she needs to feel like a good girl. So I let her know, you're still a good girl. You're still a good girl.
All right. We are growing short on time, and I don't want to miss the opportunity to let you talk about the Luminari.
Oh, man. It's been a weird little thing, honestly. I love it. I'm so passionate about it. It's very small right now, and I'm still just figuring it out. And then this is what I'm sad about. I got this whole beautiful direction for it and then got the flu. So this content this week has been shit, but they love it. They say.
But what is it? So we have some listeners who haven't had any exposure to you before this episode. So explain to us what the concept is.
Because
maybe they're going to want to go visit.
About building a life that you are in love with. And I have a member right now who's, but I'm doing all the things that I ever, dreamed of or whatever. And I'm like, are you feeling all the things that you wanted to feel though? Because I'm hearing a lot of anxiety. I hear a lot of fear, no peace, no joy. So even if you're living the life of your dreams, it can't be if it doesn't feel a certain way. So we're focusing on how we feel, how we can move through the world and gain the experiences that we want independent of anyone else. So like I was telling you about building a foundation, we're working on that. The first week of this course was building emotional hygiene, and you get a lot of rambling videos from me. It's just, I don't even know how to describe it yet because it's still such a work in progress, but it's my heart basically. And this is what I've noticed is that my gift truly is in experiencing something, working through it, sharing with others. So I go, what do I need right now? And I do the things and then I share with the luminary. That's basically, and then my hope really is that it's going to be a community where people get advice from each other too. And me, I want a community. I'm lacking friends and just like growing, but something that keeps us living very intentionally and not getting distracted by all this crazy that's happening in the world, like digital detox, emotional detox, everything, just staying very focused on me creating the feelings of the life that I want. Yeah, I want all my dreams to come true, but it's not going to matter if I'm still living in my fear and my doubt and my despair. And so that's my hope is that I can be a light for others and they find theirs and they shine bright too. Like that we bring more and more people into this community to find their own light first and then shine for other people. Because I think that's who's meant for me and my energy is you've gone through some stuff and now you want to help others. And we don't care about how messy it is. And that's been a really beautiful lesson too, is just not being perfect is just fine. And I did at first think I needed better standards for the membership than I have for my podcast. But you know what? I love my podcast. I love how authentic it is. And I love how real I am. And everybody, like all the videos that I've posted in there, like me when I first wake up, me looking like hell from the flu. None of it's fake. And you will see me muddle through trying to develop this because I don't know what I'm doing, but I do know I'm giving really good information and helping others live a life that they love.
And one more question. What is your superpower and how do you use it to make good?
I think my superpower is the ability to speak and everybody hear it in their own language. And I use that for good I feel like sometimes I have a visual. The visual that's happening whenever I'm speaking about this is like light coming out of my mouth. So like if that was like a spotlight, if I opened my mouth and it created a spotlight for others, that's what I think, because I think my voice offers a lot of hope.
I can see that on the
Yes.
comic strip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It was
great.
totally, yes, that's exactly what I was envisioning.
There you go.
So-
See? Those were my acting skills, people.
Awesome. Love it. This is really a joy to meet you and talk to you. I mean, it was really quite a treat. So thank you so much for your
Yes,
time.
I had such a good time too. I'm so glad I was feeling better to be able to come on.
Oh, we were too. Thank you so much. All right.
Yes.
Social Leopards, until next time. See you next week.
Bye. Have a nice week.
Hey, Social Leopards. Don't slink back into the jungle quite yet. We have 2 important messages to share. First, remember to like this episode, drop us a comment, and if you haven't done it yet, follow this show or subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can reach us on social media. You can also email share@socialleopards.com to contact us privately. All links are in the show notes. We love and appreciate hearing from those who listen to the show.
Second, we want you to know that this show is not intended to be a replacement for professional therapy. If you are struggling or if you need to interact with another person, check out the show notes for resources. Thanks for listening.